anyway, it's a great game. It forces you to confront your gut instincts about a particular issue, and then it forces you to engage with other people. One of the questions that Peter will ask participants is, okay, what would it take to move you from agree to strongly agree? Or what would it take to move you away from neutral? And you end up having very spirited debates and discussions. And it was a lot of fun. But in the University of 2024, this is just not the type of thing you can get away with, as learned by Professor Leigh Revers, who's an associate professor at the Institute of Management and Innovation at the University of Toronto, Mississauga, was reprimanded by his department chair for daring to do this with students. Leigh, it's good to talk to you. Thanks so much for coming on the show today.
Well, thanks for having me. It's great to be here.
So, I mean, what is the value in this? What is the pedagogical value of this that you were going for in the first place? And then we'll get into what happened.
Yeah, well, because I really think university is a holistic experience. I think students should go and not just study their subject, but also learn how to think. So I'm on a committee, or I was, I should say, on a committee, which it prioritizes doing social events for students. So this was one of the events, and we were all asked to come up with an activity. And I thought what Peter Boghossian was doing was terrific. And I've played this game with colleagues and students in the past, and it's a lot of fun, as you pointed out with that brilliant clip there. So we did this, but of course it led to complaints. I mean, students feel uncomfortable. I think, there are quite a few young people at the university now, especially after the pandemic, and I would describe them as the young identitarians, right? So these are the people that, they enter a room, and in this case, if they find that there may be people in the room that don't hold the same opinion that they hold, then they make a fuss about it and like to complain, and that's exactly what happened. So quite disappointing, really.
What were the Oh, I think we lost you, but it appears you're back. What statements did you use when you set this game up?
Right. Well, I thought, I'd look at the Overton window and see, and that's just the window of like the discussion points that people are reasonably discussing, and started with something fairly simple, such as vegetarians are morally superior to omnivores. Right. So, what do you think to that? And I count down, and they move to the lines. And so we had some spirited discussion, because some people, think yes and others no. And we moved on. And of course, it gets more interesting as it gets a little bit more political. I was actually told by colleagues, don't get too political. And by that, I thought I'd avoid things like the Trudeau carbon tax that you were discussing earlier. But we went on to things like Professor Jordan Peterson requires media training, which I thought was topical. But according to my department chair, that's outside of the Overton window. That's not acceptable. Students aren't prepared. They might have a manic episode, for instance, by being challenged and feeling uncomfortable. So, and those were just warm-up claims. So you can see how it might have got out of hand in that sense. I mean, what I found, to be honest with you, were the students were really engaged. When I started with the vegetarian thing, I had only a couple of students playing, and by the end of this, we had about 15 to 20 people playing. It was not enough room on the lines because people actually enjoy doing this.
Well,
So I
and
think
they were active in it too. Like one of the examples you gave here, Western science is hampered by a political bias. You had a student who identified as Muslim and a woman of color who stood in the strongly agree line and explained things that I disagree with and that you disagreed with about science. But she was clearly selling her position on this, which is the point of it. So I'm curious where the complaints came from. Did students not like that they were being forced to expose their beliefs, or did they not like that certain questions were being put up as being debatable?
I think a bit of both. I think students who don't want to express an opinion on any particular claim, because they haven't seen the claims at the beginning, so they stay on the neutral line, and I think that's reasonable. You don't have to express an opinion, or you can stop playing at any point. But I think some people just don't like the idea that there are disputes. I mean, once I got to men can become women, which I think is a very reasonable discussion topic that's now everywhere on the internet and in the media. I think some folks think that isn't up for discussion at all. There is no dispute. But I find that hard to believe because I keep hearing from both sides on that. So there are two sides to that discussion. There are different opinions and differing ideas. And so my job was simply to be as neutral as possible and not express my own beliefs at all.
And that was one that your chair very clearly said should never have happened. That question never should have been put out there.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, if I wanted to do that, I can do it on the university property on the campus, but I would need to kind of flag that up first so that people could be suitably prepared. Now, my view, first of all, the game is no fun if you know what the claims are going to be. Part of the fun is
Yeah,
not
but it
knowing.
relies on that gut
Yeah,
instinct of just
absolutely.
immediately stand on. Because, I'll say just for my own part, when I played it, some of my answers surprised me, which you may think is kind of silly because you're the one that's choosing it. But when you don't think about something, when you just are drawn to a mat, it actually is a very useful self exploration tool, I think.
Absolutely, it is. I find the same, which is why I like hosting, just to see how people respond themselves. And even people inclined to agree with, but I don't express that. When I ask them, why do you stand there and tell me why you're standing on that line, they have to think quite hard because, of course, they weren't expecting the follow up in that sense. I mean, they have to think. And that is the whole point of doing this, right? Think about the claims, take a position, and then try to back up your stance, preferably with evidence. I mean, a lot of people say, well, I just feel. I don't think that commands a lot of sway, from the audience necessarily. I think obviously, and we want students to be better at this, right? Because in life, later on, there's going to be the opportunity to debate these things, whether it's around a dinner table or maybe it's at work. Um, and if they haven't really been governed by the skills, they haven't acquired the skills at university, then why are we here? So for me, anyway, I mean, I teach chemistry normally, so this is not something that I would do in a chemistry class. But we're hearing a lot about this at the university, as you know. I mean, I've been asked to decolonize my chemistry, and I'm working towards possibly a way of doing that, but it could be quite tricky. So my view is we need to let students make up their own minds and provide an environment where they can actually have fun doing this, and to reassure them that they can take any position they want.
One of the challenges that I have always wondered about here, and I don't know if you have any insights on this or not. Do you believe that your department chair is a true believer in what was being meted out to you, or do you think that there is just that governance of fear and the governance by the administrators that are forcing people that don't really think all of what you did was unreasonable to kind of pretend it was unreasonable?
Yeah, I think amongst colleagues they fall into two camps. I mean, I'm in STEM, so I think the inherent bias in STEM is this is all rather silly and a bunch of nonsense. Let's concentrate on doing some science.
Mhm.
I think that's very clear, but I think people are afraid to express that opinion. And then there are some who seem to be the ones that get promoted to positions of power and influence at the university and the administration, who really have drunk the Kool-Aid. Actually, I find it surprising. They're usually not the hard scientists. I would say, we all believe in the Enlightenment and the idea that you back up all your ideas with evidence. And I'm a progressive, but I would call myself a rational progressive. But there are some colleagues here, I think they really do believe this, that they've hook, line, and sinker, actually. So I think those are the ones that will be promoted to chairships, to be deans, and ultimately to be presidents and principals of the university. And I think we've seen that. I mean, we only have to look to Claudine Gay
Mhm.
and across the border to see that that has in fact proven true. And I don't think Canada is immune at all. So, and U of T is the top university in terms of science, right? So even here.
And one of the things, I mean, obviously it's a social event and it's lighthearted. And I think you
Yeah.
fused academia with a game and with something social pretty well. I was reading your National Post op-ed about this, which I would encourage everyone tuned in to do as well. And if you take away your contribution to this, I want to read your paragraph about what was left. There were
Mhm.
jigsaws arrayed on one table, a professor playing a variant of Snap with students at another, and on a third, no word of a lie, were coloring sheets and crayons. Aliens arriving from Vega would be forgiven for mischaracterizing the event as a daycare for human 20-something. So you can't have any game that is more intellectually provocative than coloring or a card game with university students in 2024 is basically what I take away from this.
Well, when I walked into that room, I mean, I'd made some preparations to have a big TV screen and, PA
Mhm.
system and all of this set up. I couldn't believe my eyes. Right? I mean, I saw a table and I genuinely thought, why are the crayons on that table? This must be for the something else, preceding event
Yeah,
or
we're doing
something.
the day camp early this
Yeah,
year or
yeah, yeah,
something.
exactly, which we do at the university in the summer. And so I just couldn't understand this at all. I mean, this is not what university is about. I mean, these people, these young people who I care a great deal about, I mean, they can vote, right? So these they're the age of majority, and they'll be making decisions about the future of Canada, will they not? So, yeah, I find it shocking, genuinely shocking, quite upsetting, really, that that was even countenanced as an alternative activity. My feeling is what I did was the only adult activity going on in the room. And actually, I think people voted with their feet when they came to play. I mean, not my fault that some people don't like the claims, but they can absent themselves. But I was told, the chair told me this was transphobia, essentially. She didn't say that. I should clarify that the complaints indicated that it was transphobic. For example, to say safeguarding of children is more important than gender ideology. Excuse me, because I've
Wow.
got a kid who's just
You've
decided.
got a cameo on the screen now. Well, welcome. Uh, I mean, so basically, I mean, your cat actually provides a natural segue here because essentially the only things you'd be allowed to do would be, cats are better than dogs. Agree or
Right.
disagree?
Yeah, exactly. Cats are better than dogs. It would be a perfect claim, but it's not terribly exciting, is it? It doesn't require great. It comes down to personal choice, very subjective. I like cats. Other people like dogs. Great. There's not a lot of engagement to be had there, and I think my favorite, of course, which is my chair's favorite, is why not stick to pineapple belongs on pizza. And I know
That
that
was
gets a lot.
literally the example they gave of you could
Yeah.
do this, but only if this is your question or your claim.
Yeah, yeah. Otherwise, get it run past some politically, sort of sensitive group that that would kind of decide. Somebody is making these decisions. I thought I had academic freedom. In fact, according to my union, which is University of Toronto Faculty Association, according to them, I am supposed to have academic freedom, not just in the teaching I do in a classroom, but also in all the activities that I engage on the campus with students. So that would include this. And I didn't get to the end of the session because a colleague actually told me to stop, and they just thought it was getting really, really too much. And that's a shame because I had some other claims I was quite excited to present, and I didn't get to show those. But yeah, I think this is problematic for any serious university. There is an organization at the university now, a working group that's all about encouraging civil discourse on the campus. So I think they really want to try to turn the boat around a little bit. So I'm very hopeful, but it's definitely something I think we in STEM are concerned about.
All right. Well, worst case scenario, you'll have to team up with Peter Boghossian and start doing it just outside of the university perimeter, and maybe you'll
Right.
avoid the sanctions then. All right. Well, fascinating display. I'm sorry you went through this, but I'm glad you're speaking out about it the way you are, Professor Leigh Revers. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for listening to The Andrew Lawton Show. Support the program by donating to True North at www.tnc.news.